you'd never get to see it. And she would always say, you always have to save something for next time.
Hi, this is Missy.
Hi, this is Elizabeth, and welcome to You Should Meet My Friend. Today, we are meeting Erica Forrest. Erica was recommended by Angie Drake from season 2. Missy and I have not met her until just right this moment, but we're very excited to get to know her today. She is a travel education consultant, a published author, and founder of Trip Scholars, where she combined her 30 years of experience in education with research and the discoveries made through her own travels. Missy and I love to travel, so we can't wait to talk about it. Through her program, she guides clients on how to prepare before travel, immerse themselves more fully while they're on the road, and reflect afterward to transform their trips into lasting, enriching experiences. She's been featured in Wander, BuzzFeed, Apartment Therapy, Best Life, and has been interviewed on her local NPR station. Her writing has been published in over 60 travel websites, and she's appeared as a guest on more than 20 podcasts and summits. So we are thrilled that she would be a guest on our podcast. So thank you for joining us, Erica.
I am so excited to be here with both of you. Thank you very, very much for inviting me. And I really appreciate Angie introducing us. So thanks.
I've spent some time on your website, lots of great articles, lots of different advice, but where did the travel wanderlust start for you in your life?
Yeah, well, unlike your fortunate children, I did not grow up traveling. I had wonderful parents, but it just was not part of the budget or our lifestyle. So it wasn't until I was a teenager that we took our first trip to Yellowstone National Park. And that was like our first trip out of Southern California. And it blew me away. It was just astounding. You know, we came in from West Yellowstone along the Madison River. You can see bald eagles and the bison. And then you start seeing mud pots and the different geologic activity. And it was life-changing for me. So I ended up getting to teach science. And I still love geology, and it really inspired a love of travel for me. So after high school, you know, I would save up every $50 and take little road trips and camping trips. And then eventually our family started homeschooling, and we incorporated a lot of travel into our approach to education. And we've gotten to take some really remarkable trips together.
Wonderful.
Yeah, so that's how it started.
Would you share how many kids do you have?
Sure. We have 3 kids, and now the oldest is 30 and our youngest is 19.
Oh,
So
wow.
I became a high school science teacher. Then I was a director of Montessori schools on the Big Island. Eventually, we did start homeschooling with my background in teaching. You know, at first it was formal, like we're sitting down at the table and I am teaching them things. And eventually we really moved into very child-led learning. And both in Portland, Oregon, where we used to live, and here in Seattle, Washington, where we live now, there are very robust secular homeschooling communities. And so we were able to really participate in a lot of fabulous learning opportunities.
I feel like my kids turned out okay, but to have the ability to have much more experiential learning as in grade school, middle school, and high school, I think would just have been so nifty. Plus, you get to go too, so it's fun.
It was a huge privilege, but also, you know, as a former public high school teacher myself, I love what happens in public schools, and I'm really grateful for all of that. And like I know your kids have had, both of you, because of the nature of your lifestyles, they've had all of these incredible immersive experiences. They're very, very fortunate. It really allows us to have this much broader, deeper perspective.
And I think you can get that either way. You know, you just got to find the way that best fits for your family. You know, we were fortunate being military families that it was just kind of ingrained in our lifestyle. Like, okay, you're going to have all these different experiences. Chris and I got to, you know, experience some of these things for the first time as well. Angie also homeschooled her boys, and sometimes they would take me and my kids on their adventures. She'd be like, hey, you know, we're doing a field trip. It's for school. And you want to come along? And it's like, okay, sure.
Yeah.
And my kids learn so much just from being with her and her boys. Because with Angie, it's always learning. She's always teaching. She's always learning. But you said something about traveling as a teen. My family, we didn't have a lot of money either, but in the summers, my grandmother would let us all, one Sunday every month, we would skip church. And my grandmother never did that unless she was sick on her deathbed in the hospital, you know. But so through the summer, like spring and summer, we would do this, and we would sit at the end of the driveway, and then it would be, you know, my mom and my dad, my sister and I, and my grandmother and my aunt. And my dad would be like to me and my sister, okay, left or right? Okay, one of us would go left. And then he'd get to the next intersection, he'd be like, left, right, or straight, you know, and I'd be like, right. And that is how we would end up a couple hours away from home. Just,
I love that.
very
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Life is an adventure.
Right. We never had a plan. Sometimes somebody would be like, hey, I heard about this thing, or I seen about this thing, and we would go check it out. But it was a lot of fun. It was some of my best memories. And I think, okay, we're going to go on this, you know, trip, and I'm going to have everything planned. We didn't plan anything, and it's still some of my best memories. So
I love that. Your grandma and your parents sound like really remarkable people.
they had a wanderlust,
Yeah.
part of them. So.
Yeah. And I think you're bringing up a really great point there. A lot of people think you need to save up thousands of dollars and plan these really epic trips, but you can have these amazing adventures that last a lifetime in your memory. You're talking about some of your most cherished memories, and they happened within an hour or two of your home.
Oh, yeah.
So you do not have to spend a lot of money to have amazing travel experiences at all.
Yeah.
I love that.
Your love of travel and these trips you would do with your family, when did that become an idea for a business?
Oh, thanks. That's a good question. So we were incorporating travel into our lifestyle and into our approach to homeschooling. And as the primary homeschool parent, I was spending an enormous amount of time looking for resources, finding classes and mentors or recipes or, activities we could do before and after these trips so that we could really amplify and enhance what we were doing when we were traveling. And it was really time consuming. And I was finding a lot of junk, because I'm sure you're not surprised that there's just a lot of junk out there. So I kept thinking, wouldn't it be great if there was like an easy way to find all these resources and make it easy for other curious people to incorporate more of this into their lives? So at the same time, I mentioned before that our kids are 10 years apart. And so we were watching some of our friends who were becoming empty nesters 10 years or more before we were going to become empty nesters. And so my husband and I were trying to decide what we wanted this next chapter to be like. And he has always been a sailor. So we finally decided we were finally going to sell everything and move aboard a sailboat and travel. So I had been looking for, how can I find something I can bring with me on the boat to have as a job? And this was before COVID, where now it's very obvious that there are many things you can do nomadically. And I finally realized I could provide this service I've been looking for to other curious people who are just busy and are looking for a way to add it to their lives. So that was how I started. It's transformed considerably since I first launched it. It kind of had a different focus at the beginning, but I just keep listening to the people that I work with and finding out what it is they're looking for the most, and, keeping that in alignment with my values and what I really want to be able to provide. And that's how it is, its current iteration.
I am a planner. I love to plan trips and research. My husband and I were just talking about a trip because we met when we lived in Japan. So for our 30th anniversary, I'm like, let's go back to Japan. And,
oh, how lovely.
And see. And so, since I'm the planner, Greg's like, well, figure out if maybe we could see sumo and baseball, or what the schedules are, so we could sort of figure out when a good time of the year for us is. So the planning and the going on the trip, feel like I'm good at, but I'm really fascinated about how you have a philosophy of what you do after your trip, and how you bring what you learned on your trip back with you in a more deliberate way.
Thank you. That's a great question. And I always love to meet other people who also love to do a lot of planning. I feel like what I provide isn't just for those of us who love to plan like this. It can be used in a lot of different ways. But there is a lot of joy in that planning, isn't there? Yeah, one of the things in addition to what I provide on the website, I also host workshops and classes, and then I do coaching, travel coaching with people. And sometimes I just do one-off sessions, but I also do long-term travel coaching. And so this is really where I'm able to support people the most in focusing on with those transformations that happen while we're traveling and how we can incorporate that back into our lives. And so when I'm working with people beforehand, but certainly anybody could do it at any time, thinking even before you go, what is it that I'm wanting to get out of this experience? Why am I taking this trip? Doing some of that self-reflection before we leave so that we're kind of paying attention to it while we're traveling, and then we can focus on it when we get back. And so, like, my husband and I just took our 30th anniversary trip to Scotland this year.
Nice.
Yeah, and it was fabulous. It was wonderful. And obviously, for a trip like that, we're focused on connecting and enjoying a lot about our relationship. And so that was the main focus. That's how we planned the itinerary. And now we have all of these memories that we can look back on. But when I'm working with travel coaching clients, a lot of times it's especially the long-term coaching that I do, it's usually people at some kind of major junction in their life. So sometimes young people, young adults who are taking their first international trip, taking their first solo trip, and they're kind of trying to figure out, who am I separate from my family and my neighborhood and everybody who's known me. And so we do a lot of conversations and journaling and things like that. What are you wanting to get from this? And then reflecting on that back when we get back. I also work with a lot of empty nesters who, again, we're at this juncture. I know all three of us are kind of at the same chapter in life. Who am I after devoting my life? For those of us who had kids, after raising a family and taking care of everybody, and being able to give people journaling prompts and things to think about while they're traveling so that when they come back, they can reflect on that and think about, who am I? And then another thing that happens, I mean, you both had the opportunity to do so much travel as military families, but for a lot of people, I'm working with them while they're getting ready to take one of these big trips for the first time. And a lot of people fall in love with travel and they come back and they're like, how can I do more of that? So working with people to figure out how to incorporate travel as a regular part of their lives, whether that's building up a business focused on travel or saving money, or what I do a lot of at Trip Scholars, which is, really taking advantage of all that time before and after travel to learn about the places that we're going. So how can they learn more about their destinations before they go, or how can they become better travelers in that time before they go? But I love the question. Thank you.
I feel like I have a tendency of we get home from travel and then you just have to jump back on the merry-go-round of life.
Yes.
And other than maybe having a new favorite drink, or like after having many, many cappuccinos, I came home and I bought myself a milk frother because I'm like, those are actually really good to have every day.
They are, and they bring back the memories of sitting in those lovely cafes. Duo cappuccino, per favore.
Exactly.
Well, there are so many different things that we can layer into our lives. Anything from how do you want to keep those memories alive? Like, I know both of you are writers. Some people choose to share the journeys that they've been on and the transformations that they've been through writing or through photography. I also work with people who are planning heritage trips. And a lot of times that ends up being this incredibly rich resource for the rest of the family. So can you invite people over afterwards if you're going on a heritage trip, other family members, and share some of those recipes or the music while you're going through the slides and sharing the stories about what you learned about the family? Yeah, finding a lot of opportunities to bring it back in. And I mean, we could talk the whole time about things that we can do when you come home from a trip, because usually people are so, kind of exhausted after a trip. So also, how can you build in an opportunity to come home and feel refreshed? And how can you reflect back on your favorite parts of it and integrate it into your life, just like you did with the milk frother? Yeah, we were just drinking some whiskey from last night from one of the distilleries we were at on that trip. So, and talking about that particular day.
Me and my sister and our husbands, we just went down to southern Utah, St. George area for band competition.
Gosh,
a couple
that's
weekends
pretty
ago.
there. So
it
beautiful.
Is, yes, Red Rocks. And we discovered, and maybe we're late to the game, it's gelato in espresso.
Yum.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my goodness. Life-changing. I just, all my, friends who don't drink coffee, I was like, no, you should. And so now, how can we replicate this? Can we make it at home? And
so are you experimenting?
We haven't yet. But the good thing is the coffee is actually a local coffee. They have a coffee shop and they grind their own beans. So I'm going to go to them and go, excuse me, why are you not serving this? And the name escapes me. There's actually an Italian. I guess it's Italian.
It's like affogato or
affogato. Yes. And so, yeah, we were like, oh my goodness. And the great thing is Chris, who doesn't drink coffee, he could still just get gelato. But we killed two birds with one stone. You get your midday coffee with a treat. So it's perfect.
That sounds so good.
Yeah. But Erica, could you share some tips for a stress-free trip? Or is that even possible?
I would say that's not possible, personally.
Oh, okay, good. Okay, so I'm not doing something wrong. Okay.
No. Yeah, when I first started Trip Scholars, my focus was all on the education part. But what I realized was, before people want to dig into any of that, or, these deeper reflections we can have about how travel can help us grow, most of us just want to know, how can I travel more? How can I fit it into my schedule? How can I afford it? How can it be less stressful? And so I've actually ended up focusing a lot of my business on making travel less stressful. As a matter of fact, I am working this week on a course all about how to make airports less stressful, because I think I just read 1 out of every 6 people in America has such a fear of flying that they don't fly. And that over 50% of people say that their time in the airport is more stressful than going to work. And like almost 40% say it's more stressful than going to the DMV or filing their taxes. So
I'd agree.
It is stressful to travel. And I think actually one of the things that can decrease it is like building up all these skills and the knowledge, so you know how to navigate it, and then just knowing that it is going to be stressful, and there are things that are not going to go according to plan.
Right. Yeah. My 21-year-old son just took a train from Spokane, Washington to Indiana, where my parents live.
Wow, that's a long train ride.
It is. It's like 38 hours he's on the train. It's the second time he's done it that long. He took a shorter trip one other Thanksgiving, but he's like, it's the way to go. Like, less stress.
Yep.
He's like, it's so easy. You get to see so much more of America if you're not asleep or it's dark. But yeah, and he is really trying to convince, the rest of the world that Amtrak is the way to go.
That's on my bucket list, is because I think from Chicago, you can go to Seattle, San Francisco, or LA. And there's someone I used to work with, and that was every year she did one of those trips because she wanted to do each of those trips by train. And that's definitely on my list to do, because I love traveling by train.
Yeah, I think one of the challenges for so many Americans is that we have such a small window of time to travel. And your son is absolutely right. It is more relaxing, unfortunately, for a lot of people.
True.
They're trying to squeeze it all in, so they do the flights, which is even harder on the environment.
Well, he has a whole week off, but he loves trains, but he hates. It's not that and I'm the same way. I don't mind flying. It's just I don't like other people to fly with. So if I could have a private flight, maybe I need to get rich somehow.
It's definitely the crowds in airports and on airplanes are two of the more stressful parts of that whole experience. So
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's what I highly recommend, noise canceling headphones, because you can just put them in and be in your little teeny airplane seat, be in your own little bubble.
Yeah, that's a great tip.
We were talking about this morning with some friends, and I said, I make myself, the less approachable I look, if I just put a hat on and, I have my face in my phone or my book or whatever, I got my earbuds in and I just do not look approachable. Maybe people just won't talk to me or just leave me alone, let me sleep. I don't know. But
well, I think it is really important to figure out what is the most comforting for each of us to get through that. And then, bring, whether that's the sound canceling headphones or a hoodie, a scarf, anything soft, cozy. Yeah. Just to make it bearable.
What is your biggest pet peeve about how other people travel?
Oh,
you don't have to name names.
That's a good question. I had a few experiences that inspired me to actually start Trip Scholars. And one of them was when we were in the Louvre as a family. And I was just watching so many people come and take selfies in front of paintings and walk away, like barely looking at the painting. That I might have tears running down my face while I'm looking at the painting. And I just thought, wow, that's such a shame. Travel has become so performative in so many ways. And I had another experience in Hawaii where we were at the beach and two young women came down, took a bunch of pictures of each other and left. And we used to live in Hawaii. I have a deep, profound appreciation for all of the islands. And it made me feel so sad that, it is astounding to behold that beauty. So I thought, is there a way that other people can learn a little bit more about these places or these experiences so that they can have, peak experiences or transformative experiences while they're traveling? And then as I built a business where now I need to do my own marketing, I am the person taking those. It has been a humbling experience, but also really an educational experience. Like, how can I still move through a museum? And people ask, what about phones in a museum? I want to capture these experiences, but I want to stay present. Like, really being in museums can lead us into the state of flow, can bring us to these really high moments of awareness and all of that. And so now I have a few suggestions for people. And that is, if this is something important to you, keep it in your pocket and then be present to what you're experiencing. And then at the end of your time in a room or the end of your time in a museum or an archaeological site or with your family or whatever it is you're doing, take it out later, but be intentional about it, kind of have a plan beforehand so that you can, really not let it dictate your experience. And instead you are the person, living your own life. How about you? Do you guys have pet peeves about travel?
We don't have enough time, Erica. No, couldn't name them all.
Yeah. My biggest pet peeve is, I have two big pet peeves. One is It's a military term, but it's not a secret. It's just situational awareness. When people don't have situational awareness, when they're crashing into people with their bag, or they stop in the middle of the airplane to haul their overpack thing into the overhead bin and they're not paying attention to the person sitting right below them. Just having awareness around you about, if you're going to stop because you do need to check something on your phone, it'd be really cool if you pulled off to the side of the subway station and didn't.
I am 100% in agreement. That is so true. Yes.
But the other thing is just generally, I have no space in my heart for you if you are impolite, because it is stressful. Bad things happen. Planes break, air crews time out, train strikes happen. And it's not the fault of the person that's delivering you that news. So 100%. I just really 100%. Have a hard time if you're just berating the poor person at the desk when, that person can't go find another airplane to replace the broken airplane that you're supposed to be on.
Yes, 100%. I agree with you on all of that.
My pet peeve is loud people. When you're hiking in Mount Rainier and I'm like, why are you so loud? You just scared off every bird and animal and everything's just scattered. Not that I think you have to be meek and mild. We don't want to come upon a bear and spook them. But I remember one time we were hiking and this group, you knew they were there, and we all got to the end and then they were smoking. And I was just like, I'm out in hiking in the middle of nowhere and you're smoking. I was just like so curious. But the situation awareness, also just kind of reading where you're at and knowing what is culturally appropriate where you're at. And, when Elizabeth and I both lived overseas and they were, blend in. Yeah. Don't dress like an American. Don't act like American. Just try to blend in as much as possible. And so it kind of unnerves me when we would be in Europe when we lived there and we're like, oh my gosh, these American tourists, they're the worst. Just us being judgy. It's okay.
Yeah, we do. We do have bad reputations, and I think you guys are bringing up a lot of the reasons why we do.
But I think I think we're, as more and more people get out.
Yeah, that's certainly what I've been seeing is that those stereotypes are becoming less accurate as time goes on. I think people are becoming more culturally aware and becoming better travelers, and Yeah,
I still don't want to be on a plane with them, though.
Well, and this is a totally random thought, but I feel like because the whole world is on the internet, I don't feel like and this is going from metropolitan United States to say Rome. If you're going to relatively big cosmopolitan cities, I don't feel like there's such a difference in how we dress so much anymore as maybe there used to be.
Right? Yeah. I will confess that a couple of my nicest compliments I feel like I've gotten as an international traveler is when people ask me questions in their native tongue. Like that.
Yes.
Yeah. But I think it really, one of the big things that I focus on at Trip Scholars is really helping people learn a little bit more about the culture before they go so that they can come not only with the basics, but also with curiosity and appreciation for how it is different and striving to be like a more respectful, engaged traveler. And some of that you can only get by investing some time before you go. Right. Yeah. So obviously, learning the basics in language so you can say hello and please and thank you and excuse me or I'm sorry, which seems to be one that I use the most. Yeah. But also, what are the cultural norms and how can I let people know that I acknowledge that I'm not just here to consume their space and their culture as a tourist, but I am actually here to learn more about your world and appreciate it. Yeah. Connect.
What do they say the difference is between like a tourist and a traveler? Or there's an old Yeah, you could probably explain it better.
Well, I mean, I think that there is a saying to be a traveler, not a tourist. And there is, we could talk about that for a long time because you guys have lived in all of these places. I think
Right.
some people, there's almost like a sense of pride in calling yourself a traveler instead of a tourist. I tend to think, when I'm a guest in someone's culture, I'm still a tourist. As much as I
Yeah,
want to
yeah, yeah,
claim that
yeah.
I'm a
Yeah.
traveler and, I'm here with all of the respect and curiosity that I'm bringing, I'm still
Yeah.
visiting your space. And unless I'm living there for a while. Yeah.
So you're traveling and you want to have a connection more than just hitting the usual highlights for a location. So what's your tips on how to engage more fully with the people that the place you're going?
Yeah. Yeah. Do you mean with the people or do you mean how some ideas about how to find maybe lesser known spots kind of thing?
I want an answer to both those questions, actually.
Well, as far as connecting with people, I think a lot of it again comes down to if that thinking before you go about what is it that I want, and then crafting an itinerary that is about that, and then making choices on a daily basis that kind of put you in positions where you can connect more with people. So everything from when you walk into a pub, do you want to get to know people, go sit at the bar instead of going and sit at a table. If you are wanting to meet other travelers, you could choose to stay in a hostel instead of, in your own room. You could choose to go on some of the tours and connect with other people. You can choose to ask, if you're staying in a hotel, ask the concierge, where do you go to eat when you go out with your family, and try to be in spaces where more of the locals are. And obviously, if you're doing that, you're also supporting the local economy instead of going to perhaps a chain restaurant. Yeah, so I think that there are a lot of things that we can do to put ourselves in positions to connect more with local people. And I guess I could also mention, there's also work exchange programs that if you really want to immerse yourself, there are opportunities like trusted house sitters where you can go and stay in somebody else's house and care for their home and their pets, or you could do a workaway program where you might go and stay with a family or an individual and help them with projects around their house or their business. And there's Woofing, the organization for organic farmers, where you can go and work in an orchard or a vineyard or people building a sustainable farm or something like that. And all of these kinds of opportunities let you be intimately connected to people while you're traveling and be part of a community instead of, the tourists that we were just talking about.
Tell me again, you said Woofing?
Woofing, WOOF, Worldwide Organization of Organic Farmers. And they have different branches in different countries, but they have one website that covers most of them. Yeah. So for all of those programs, you can look at them for free. And then if it looks interesting to you, then you pay a fee, an annual fee, and you can make a profile about yourself either as a host or a potential guest. And then you can start looking to see where you might want to be. And yeah,
cool.
it's a great community. I know a lot of people who get to have really interesting travel experiences by doing that. Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. I follow Home Exchange.
Oh yeah.
And I like the idea of me staying in someone else's house, but I'm less sure about someone I don't know staying in my house.
Yeah.
Which is very, very selfish of me. But there are people that are really, really enjoy it as a great, affordable way to travel.
100%. Yeah. I think that's another fabulous program. I know you also asked about what are some ways that you can find kind of lesser known places. And again, there's just so many resources. So I would encourage anybody to think about what is it that's most interesting to me, what already is exciting to me, or if you're traveling as a family to my kids or something like that. And then I've got a lot of resources on Trip Scholars, but I know you're both writers. There's a book called Booked and another, I can't remember the name of it, but they're both focused on sites you can visit around the world related to writing and authors. And so you could, if you're visiting a place where you know the author is already from, you can actually, look up and find out where did they live and or did they work in certain cafes or something like that. But you can also look for libraries and bookstores and literary tours. And a lot of the literary tours are going to be hosted by actors who get into character and make it all come alive. And so, just by picking one thing somebody might be interested in, somebody's especially interested in art, in addition to obviously getting to visit some of the top museums. You could look at doing, art walks in the area, seeing if you can find studios. Are there artists who will host you teaching? If it's like an artisanal craft, can you learn from them that way? There's My Street Art. It's an app if you're really interested in murals and, street art. There's, again, also with artists, there's a couple of websites where you can find where artists did their work or where their homes were. So It really is about thinking about what is enriching to you, like what is exciting to you, or if you're traveling with others, what lights them up. And one of the things I love most about what I get to do is really working with people to create these super individualized, super personalized itineraries. So, sometimes we come back from a trip and we're like, that was amazing. I just saw all these top sites, but I kind of feel like I missed a little something. Like if I understood it more, if I had more context, or if I had really gotten to lean into the things that are most important to me and that I value the most in life or in this relationship with my family member or my friend, I wonder what that would have been like. And so that's what I get to help people figure out for themselves.
I have a bunch of friends have recommended food tours. Because I am a planner, I want to figure things out on my own. And so I'm getting a little bit mellower about signing up for tours because that's a good way to connect with a local who can teach you some things that maybe you wouldn't figure out on your own.
I love that. Yeah. Yeah. Food tours. I actually also just recorded a course on cultural travel, and I ended it with the culinary part of cultural travel, because I think for some of us, that's our favorite part.
Oh, yeah.
Just the food and drink. You're already going to be eating and drinking when you're traveling. How can that help you understand and connect more with the people there? So yeah, food tours. I love it. Wonderful.
A friend of mine one time was traveling. They were going to be in Belgium, and we had just come back from living in Belgium. And so she was like, okay, what are the things, are must do's? And so, like I told her to go to Bruges, and there were different things. And then I was like, if you're interested in shopping, look for these things. And so it was so fun because she tagged me in all of the things that I
nice.
sent her to do and places to eat. And, she bought some lace. So she, tagged me. It was so fun because I was like, oh, someone finally listened to me.
Well, and I bet you were able to really give her a lot of personal suggestions and advice because you guys are friends. And they might have been things that would be different than if you were giving me advice. Because, I think travel is really so personal. Like everybody would pick to do a city a little bit differently.
And she was nervous because they didn't know French. And I said, no problem. She was like, oh, you were so right. Like, everyone spoke English to us. So we didn't have to worry.
One of the other things that is so interesting about what I get to do is a lot of people have a lot of anxiety about travel and worry about travel. And you guys are so well traveled. You probably don't have nearly those same challenges, but I bet that you're also able to give people a lot of reassurance. And, one of the things I encourage people to do if they're dealing with a lot of anxiety about a trip is to go ahead and write it all down. Write down what are you worried about, and then try to solve those problems. And that's, when I work with people, I help them solve those problems, but you can do it on your own, or you could ask another well-traveled friend like you how do you do that? And then they find out, oh, I don't need to, if I can say hello and thank you in French, then I can probably do the rest, just in English.
Yeah.
And then they feel relaxed and they can go enjoy themselves. So yeah, that's a great thing to give friends.
Yep. I could ask a million more questions, so I'll try and keep it to like one more question so that we can get to the real questions. This is something my husband and I talk about all the time is, do you return to a place that you really enjoyed? How do you balance that with the endless list of other adventures you want to have? Like,
that is such a good question.
Well, and I think it depends from person to person. I guess what I'm asking, maybe this is a more succinct way of saying this. Do you like to return to familiar places and dive deeper, or are you more interested in seeing places you haven't seen yet?
I like a healthy mix of both, I think, but I do love the question. So one of my favorite quotes my mom always used to say, because she moved outside of Yellowstone eventually, and Yellowstone is huge. We'd never get to see it. And she would always say, you always have to save something for next time. And then she ended up saying that about so many other travels and trips. But there are certainly places that we sit on the couch and wonder, could we move here? What would it take to move here? So there are places that I want to see for the first time. And then there are places that just really have captured my heart. And I would love to go back over and over and over. Yeah.
Well, of course, the follow-up question is, what are those places that have captured your heart?
I think some of my most favorite places, I would say Western Ireland. I love Irish music. And it's so incredibly beautiful there, and the people are so friendly, and I just love getting to watch the music live and meeting people. People are so friendly in those pubs, and getting to see all those historic and archaeological sites is really one of my favorite places. We used to live in Hawaii. My daughter's there now. Hawaii certainly has a big, big part of my heart. Here in Washington, Olympic National Park. It's just one of the most incredibly beautiful places. So I could go on, but those are three of my favorite. I bet you guys have some too. Do you have a special place that's
and some of it is just there's such a good memory there or whatever. But we did a trip to Sevilla, Spain, and it was remarkable, and we just had a blast. And we went down and saw Alhambra and did Portugal. And then I had always dreamed about going to Norway. And so we went to Norway. And at the time, my kids were at an international school. They were at a NATO school. And so my youngest son, his friend Storm was Norwegian. And so I said to his mom, okay, where should we go? And she's like, for true Norway, go to Bergen.
Bergen's so
they were from.
great.
Yeah. And so it was fantastic. And, I'm sure I could name another, dozen places. Elizabeth, you've seen so much. What would you say?
So in the U.S., there's a place we've been skiing almost every year in Vermont, a little small resort that feels like a little bit of home. And my mom lives in Arizona, and I used to live in Arizona also. And the quality of sunshine in the state of Arizona is just really, really.
I like that saying, the quality of sunshine. It is good there.
It's like 360 days a year of sunshine in Tucson, Arizona. But for overseas, we've been lucky to go to Europe a couple of times, and just wherever we've gone, we've had a really good time. But we haven't been to Asia in a really, really long time. I was stationed there the first couple assignments I had in the Air Force, so I'd really like to return.
I remember earlier you mentioned that you and your husband were considering going back to Japan for your 30th. Is that still a possible plan? Oh,
yeah.
I really hope you get to do that.
I have a very flexible schedule now, and he does too, actually, even though he's still working. Even though he and my son like to bust on me about, mom's always filling the calendar. And I'm like, oh, you poor people. I'm filling the calendar with exciting, fun things to do. But even Greg was saying, we need to pull out the 2025 calendar and figure out when's because to go to Japan, we really need to go for 10 to 14 days because of the travel time. So, it'll be my project in January and February to figure out when we should go.
That's a great time to plan. And if you already know you're planning, it can also inspire some fun gift giving over the holidays.
Oh, yeah.
That's true.
Exactly.
That's true.
Exactly.
That's true. We need to
have
be
some
aware
other-
of your time. So we have other
Yes, that's
questions we
right.
need to get to.
We do.
Otherwise, we'll
And-
talk for like 4 more hours.
I'm having a
Really?
great time. Thank you both for
Wow.
hosting me.
And before time gets away, I just want to remind people, and you obviously can always plug yourself, Erica. We want people to visit your website, tripscholars.com, and they can,
Thank you.
Learn about resources and connect with you. And so obviously that's our main goal, is to bring awareness to, what you're doing.
Extraordinary people.
So, that's right.
Well, I've enjoyed listening to your podcast and your conversations with such a wide range of people.
Right.
Yeah, you guys are really introducing me to a lot of interesting folks.
Oh,
So
well,
thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
So kind.
Thank you.
So kind. May have to have her write a review for us or something.
Yeah.
So here are the questions that we sent to you beforehand. They're the same questions we ask all of our guests, but what would be the title of the book about your life?
I came up with Inspired by Curiosity.
I love it.
Excellent.
Love it.
Yeah.
I can see it now.
I was just reflecting on me as a little kid, I majored in philosophy. It allowed me to dive deeply into so many different topics, art and science and language. And I learned guitar in my late 40s. I started my business in my 50s. I just am so curious about everything.
Yeah. I know they say curiosity killed the cat, but curiosity has, I think, done more good for the world.
I think so. I think it's also a key to aging well, because you're keeping your brain lubricated with new ideas and new things you're learning.
Yeah.
Right.
And I strive to not be obsolete.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Second, what's an unpopular opinion you have that you stand by?
Homeschoolers are rarely home. I think, especially during the pandemic, when homeschooling became when everybody had to homeschool and they had to do it at home, many people ended up with this understanding of homeschooling that you actually are sitting at the table telling your kids what to do, and you're moving through things in the same way like schooling at home, where the parents trying to make all that happen. We have, like I said, we have 3 kids. We homeschooled for many, many years. So every year was different. Our kids are all different, but we were out of the house the majority of the time. Yeah. I got to help start an alternative learning program here for homeschoolers in Seattle that ran for 12 years and served hundreds of families. It was amazing. And then I was a teacher and board member of one down in Portland. So I've just gotten to see how a lot of different homeschooling families approach it. And I know there are people who stay home most of the time. I didn't meet hardly any of those people. Most of us are out at museums and field trips and parks and traveling and, finding mentors and clubs and activities. So,
yeah.
Fabulous.
Very good. If your house is on fire and all humans and pets are safe and accounted for, what is one thing you would grab to rescue?
Yeah, that question was hard. So I have a closet. We have a closet downstairs that is like the memory closet, and it's all the things that I would like to upload and turn into digital photos and, the kids' artwork and everything. So I think I would just start going back to that memory closet and bringing stuff out and then going back more. But yeah, we've been downsizing as we're striving to move onto a sailboat in a few years. And so I do think a lot about our possessions. And as grateful as I am for all the security that we have now with the stuff that we own, when I'm thinking about what's worth keeping in storage, it's almost all the sentimental stuff. My mom was a crafter. I want to keep the things she made. I want to keep the things our kids made. I want to keep the photos, but almost everything else, it's just stuff.
For sure.
Yeah.
Very good answer. What organization do you support that you would like to share with our listeners?
Well, every year, Trip Scholars makes a donation to the North Cascades Institute. It's a nonprofit organization. Oh, you probably know it, Missy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So they provide nature education up in the North Cascades. So, yeah, another story. I grew up in the suburbs of Southern California, where all of the rivers and streams have been moved into concrete channels. And the books that I would check out the most from the library as a little girl were how to make a backyard zoo and how to make a nature museum. And so I just dreamed of, they would describe going down to the stream and looking for pollywugs. And I went to our little concrete channel in our neighborhood all the time and collected pollywugs that I would graze into frogs. But I didn't have an opportunity to see that until we went to mountain school. I went to mountain school myself down in California as a fifth grader, and I just fell in love with it. And then, as I mentioned, we finally got to go to Yellowstone, and then I got to become a science teacher. And even when I was a science teacher, the sports teams had financial resources to bring students on all of their trips to compete. But as a science teacher, I was teaching outside of East LA. I wanted to bring the kids to Griffith Observatory, and there was no funding. So we did fundraisers, car washes to build up the money so that we could go. And Griffith Observatory, is pretty world famous. But the memory that sticks out the most for me was going on this little walk. It was hardly a hike, but it was on one of the trails there. And we saw a lizard. And these teenagers, many of them had never seen a lizard, an animal in the wild like that. And everybody gathered around. It was really exciting. And that memory has always stuck with me. Like when we have an opportunity to be out in nature and when we get to be in the natural world in that way, we're so inspired and we understand ourselves and the world differently. And not everybody gets that. And so the North Cascades Institute is amazing. They do a fabulous job. And I think they serve over 2,500 fifth graders every year, and 96% of the schools receive some kind of financial assistance. So I got to organize it for homeschoolers in Seattle for a couple of years. And I even got to go and do a naturalist training there myself. So I just think it's a fabulous organization.
Very cool.
And then finally, what friend do you have with an interesting story to share, who you would recommend to be our next interviewee?
Well, this was such an interesting question because I know so many interesting people.
I bet you do. I know. I bet you do.
Well, and you guys too, all the guests on your show. But I was trying to think who might bring some resources to your listeners that might be helpful and interesting to them. And so I was thinking my friend Brittany Verlenick. She was a teacher on a reservation and served kids in a variety of different ways. And she loved to travel, but she was having a hard time finding teacher friends who also wanted to travel or, prioritized it enough that they were able to make it happen. So she built a business all around helping teachers travel. And she now hosts affordable international group trips, mostly for teachers, but for anybody. And then she has also done other things. So she's helped teachers build like side businesses. There's a platform called Teachers Pay Teachers. When teachers come up with different curriculum ideas, they can share it with other people and make money. Mm-hmm. So she has helped teachers build up that, side business. She's helped teachers become travel advisors. But then she was helping so many people that she also started helping people by becoming like a podcast editor and producer. She does social media for people. So she's just a really interesting person. And she is just trying to help people create the lives that they want. So I think she's really inspirational. Yeah, we're just in a lot of overlapping spaces. One of the first events that I hosted with her on travel education. She's also in this more meaningful travel space but with a lot of practical tips.
Two things. One is I've noticed your gorgeous husky.
I know.
Walking around behind you. So beautiful.
You'll probably hear his little foot tapping. He is so sweet. I don't know if you've ever had a husky. They are very different dogs.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
I know he wants to say hi. Oh, he laid down. I thought he was going to come over here and say hi. Can I pet your dog?
Sometimes he'll sing along when I'm playing guitar.
Oh.
And then my second question is, when you move onto a sailboat full time, is it to travel the world or be based out of a certain location or just wherever the winds blow?
I think it'll probably be in 2 stages. One will be, the first stage will be in a particular location while my husband is still working, and maybe in a couple of locations. And then we'll be traveling the world. Yeah. There's a lot to see, as you both know.
What a great lady.
She is. Very.
Well, and of course we liked talking to her because she was constantly complimenting us. Like, I'm down for a conversation with her all night long.
Right. When we start to get bummed out, we'll just keep Erica on speed dial and she'll tell us all the wonderful things.
What a ray of sunshine. But of course, that would be the kind of person that Angie would recommend.
Right. Absolutely. And again, just the ability for people to see a need or see where they can contribute to the world in some small way. And she's been able to monetize it, which, I don't think is the most important thing to her, but travel, I think, is a very universal thing. And people are always going to want to travel. And
not to dive into our current country's politics, but maybe perhaps if people traveled more within our own country and to other countries, and just walking in other people's shoes, maybe we would stop yelling at each other then.
I agree. No, I think so much of that. And we touched on that a little bit, just having diversity in your life and having, whether it be food or people or experiences of travel. I think travel really helps us get rid of those biases about other people. Well, Erica was very interesting. I learned a lot from her. Even
it makes
me some good travel tips.
Yeah, it makes me want to be a bit more, I guess, deliberate in the
taking it slower and slowing down and discovering new things, like the fact that you can put gelato in espresso. So.
Exactly. I gotta say, we didn't talk about this way to reduce stress, but a well-timed snack or drink has saved so many stressful situations, for sure.
Well, and when the kids were little, and especially in Europe, and, moms invented the word hangry because kids started to just come unglued. And I would say to Chris, okay, let's just go get some gelato, some ice cream, a drink, whatever.
Where is the nearest bakery?
Bakery.
Into these people.
Oh, yeah. And it helps so much.
It does.
But yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think you kind of need to plan for those too. People who maybe are just have packed itinerary, we got to do this and then this and then this. We were always kind of like, let's just see what happens. We know we want to see this and this. But it was like, okay, if that museum is so busy or that place is, I did enjoy kind of the relaxed approach. Yeah. And there were some times I was like, we're not going in. We'll just have to take pictures outside.
Exactly.
And it did lead to a lot more kind of just going with flow. Now, I know that's anxiety inducing to other people and they need to know what's going on. So I respect that. Not everyone wants to travel the same way.
Yeah, I don't have to have every moment planned. I would like to know where I'm sleeping.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Find us at facebook.com/YSMMF podcast and Instagram at YSMMF podcast for episode announcements. Thanks.